The UFO story is reaching a fever pitch here in the United States. So the question is, why now? We just saw a hearing this week in Congress where 3 whistleblowers came forward about their experiences with non-human spacecraft, and there's been a lot of theories being floated out about why now. It's a distraction because of the labor movements, because of the Supreme Court, Trump, Hunter Biden. It's a ploy to get more funding for the military. It's just holograms from Project Bluebeam or some other advanced black budget military program. Happy to hear anyone present their case on any of those options, but I'm going to present the case today that what I believe we are seeing is an authentic, organic, constitutional struggle between the executive branch and the legislative branch of the US government over who has the authority over UFO materials. This is going to be long and dusty, but if you want to get in the weeds, this will be perfect for you. First, I want to set the stage with some baseline understanding. The US government is not a monolith. It is one of the largest organizations on the planet. It is comprised of 3 components: the executive branch, which is the office of the president, the cabinet, the intelligence community, the military, and they also manage the classification system. The legislative branch proposes laws, nominates judges, and provides oversight over the actions of the executive branch. The legislative branch is the only branch of government other than the president where the people are allowed to elect the representatives. The judicial branch adjudicates the laws that are passed by Congress, which is the legislative branch. Congress has 2 chambers, the House and the Senate. They have similar but different mandates. And when I say the term UFO or UAP, I mean something very specific. I think the new Schumer-Rounds amendment in the Senate defines it well. You can pause and look, but I'm talking about stuff that looks like this, and this too. So the UFO phenomenon has been a part of the human story for millennia. There's a lot of great researchers who cover the history of it, what I'll refer to as the legacy era. But it has now become widely accepted that the modern attention that the executive branch and the legislative branch, remember they have a different perspective on this issue, started with the release of an article in December 16th of 2017 by Helene Cooper, Leslie Kean, and Ralph Blumenthal in the New York Times. This story and the events that came after can be directly linked to the legislative actions that have led to the hearing we saw this week in the House Oversight Committee. Our story starts with the late former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid of Nevada in 2008, when he, along with 2 other Senate colleagues, Ted Stevens of Alaska and Daniel Inouye of Hawaii, secured $22 million of black budget funding to create a UFO study program. The $22 million was set to be allocated to a government contractor, and that contract went to a bidding process that was posted on August 18th, 2008. The program was set to be called OSAP, the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program, which, among other things, was set to create a worldwide database of this UFO data, as well as technical studies for forward-looking scientific research. We can probably thank George Knapp, a local Nevada journalist at KLAS TV, for bringing the issue to Harry Reid's attention in the first place. And the OSAP contract was ultimately given to another Nevada local, billionaire Robert Bob Bigelow, owner of Bigelow Aerospace. Side note, George Knapp also happens to be the same journalist who did the first interviews with Bob Lazar, who was the original UFO crash retrieval alleged whistleblower in the 80s. There are 3 key players that led the early days of the OSAP program that are important to make note of. The OSAP program was run under the DoD within the Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA. The program was led on the government side by Dr. James Lakatsky, a rocket scientist from within DIA. Here's what he had to say about the program.
You also have, technical studies, and you have that database, probably the largest UFO database that exists in the world and is currently being used by the U.S. military. So yes, it was completely a UFO project.
So this is our first on-the-record statement of the existence of visual evidence and data. The OSAP program was looking at both military and civilian sightings. Next up, Colm Kelleher, who is a PhD biochemist and researcher who led up the program on the Bigelow Aerospace side. So Bigelow Aerospace created a sub-entity called Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies that was going to be the entity that executed on this contract. Here's what he had to say about that process and the scale of the operation.
All of these hiring and recruitment occurred within a 4 or 5 month period. I think by the end of May of 2009, we had a team of about 50 people. Dr. Lekatsky's input in Washington, D.C., and greasing the wheels to make all of this happen, and putting together a pretty large organization that was focused only on UFO investigations. That was the key.
So OSAP was a 50-person program that created a worldwide database of military and civilian sightings, as well as this list of technical reports, including studies on space-time modifications for spaceflight applications, anti-gravity studies, warp drives, and more. The third key player in the early OSAP days who would be a linchpin for the process moving forward is Jay Stratton. He helped operate the program alongside Dr. Lekatsky on the government side. He was a naval intelligence guy, and he would go on to become the highest ranked and the most experienced UFO hunter, having been in a lead role in all three iterations of the UFO program, starting with OSAP. As the OSAP program was nearing the conclusion of its contract period, they decided to create a sub-program as a spin-off, ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which could continue to operate once the $22 million funding had run out, and ATIP's focus was going to be specifically on military sightings that had accompanying video and or multispectral data. Remember our buddy Jay Stratton? He would be the one to go on to personally recruit the new director of ATIP, this gentleman, Lou Elizondo. Lou was a former U.S. Army counterintelligence special agent and also an intelligence officer at the DIA. Both OSAP and ATIP were highly classified programs, so Lou Elizondo was surprised when one day this gentleman, Christopher Mellon, the former Deputy Assistant Undersecretary for Defense for Intelligence under both Clinton and Bush, walked into his office asking about the program. After being stonewalled from within the walls of the DIA and the DoD, interestingly, one of the specific notes that they've mentioned was that there was strong religious pushback to the continued look into the UFO topic, as there were some senior ranking officials within DIA that believed them to be demons. This is a true story. They chose to go public and leak 3 videos by circumnavigating the existing declassification system. So it was this small cadre of former DoD officials, Lekatsky, Kelleher, Stratton, Elizondo, Mellon, alongside a few others who joined Mellon and Elizondo with Tom DeLonge, yes, the lead singer of Blink-182, in creating an organization to the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, whose goal was to try to force public awareness around the existence of the evidence that was collected in the OSAP and ATIP programs. And it was on that exact same day, December 16th, 2017, when the New York Times exposed the existence of ATIP, the successor of OSAP, they also released this article talking about the 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac encounter with Commander David Fravor, who was one of the 3 witnesses that testified this week in front of the House Oversight Committee. The 3 videos released alongside these 2 articles in 2017 were a direct result of the work done by the classified programs OSAP and ATIP, and was the first time we'd gotten confirmation since Project Blue Book in the 60s that the US government was in fact studying this issue and was in possession of evidence. At the time these articles came out in 2017, there was no publicly available information that the executive branch of the government was engaging in any activity related to the UFO or UAP topic. At the same time, within the legislative branch in Congress and the House and Senate, there were no efforts, no legislation, no task forces, and no comments being given to this issue. As you can imagine, the New York Times putting their name brand behind these 2 stories with accompanying video evidence piqued a lot of people's curiosity, both in the news media and in the Congress, because from the Congress's perspective, again, the legislative branch, they were not aware of these programs. So they're now asking the question, what are these programs and where did you get the money for it? That's what's led to legislation that led to the hearings we saw this week, and I'll cover that legislation in part 2.